This is the Reflector Reflections podcast. My name is Annie. Join me as we revisit with our guests who've been on their journey over this past year and connect to them to see where they're at now and how they're going. Today's beautiful conversation is with Mila. Mila is a 6'2" manifestor and was on episode 12 with us, sharing her journey as a manifestor, her friendships with reflectors, parenting by design, and helping other manifestors navigate their unique design. It is so lovely to catch up with you again, my lovely friend. Welcome back.
So nice. I was just telling Annie before we started recording that I just love the fact that it's so easy to connect to someone across the world. I'm going to miss the internet when it's gone.
Is it going somewhere? Maybe it is. Is it going somewhere?
Maybe.
Do you know something we don't know?
No, I'm just, it's 2027 is getting closer, and so the background will shift, but hopefully it won't go anywhere during my lifetime. I don't know.
Yeah, never know.
Just appreciate it now. No, I didn't actually listen back to the podcast that we did recently. I did listen to it and I was like, oh, I said a lot of fucked up shit.
That's the beauty about going back. You don't listen to it. You just like, I know we were talking about something, and I've often said to you as well, like when I first started listening to the podcast you had with Kezia, and I'm like, I want my own manifestor. Can you be my manifestor best friend? I want my own manifesting best friend. I've got them literally crawling out of the wall. I remember you saying to me, be careful what you wish for. Yeah. I've got them all around me now. And it's just like, I literally have my own Queen's Guard. That's how it feels. That's how it feels. And it's just like, look at them all popping up everywhere. And I'm like,
yeah, that's a very different connection between the manifestor and the reflector, because and not all reflectors in my life are living their experiment. Most of them are aware of their design, but not living their experiment. But for me as a manifestor with that repelling aura, it's so much easier being in the same space with the reflector than with a not self generator, sacral being, or a not self projector. It's just so much easier for my body. I can feel myself physically just relax. I love it.
Yeah, I have, that's what the friends of mine have said. They're like, you're easier to be around. And because obviously I've inducted them into the cult. But but it's like I say, yeah, but the feedback is also, I want to say, air quoting here the word not self, but I have one manifest, I say reflected in one manifestor friend who's a 3-5, and she has, not so much this year, but definitely last year, she would struggle. She'd think I was angry with her or upset. And it was sometimes I sort of had to say to her, how were you feeling on that day?
Wow.
And I think she's learned now to whatever she feels she's picking up from me could be a reflection of how she's internalizing her day or feeling about herself. Because I sort of say, well, I'm pretty much the same for most school pickups. I'm the same. Nothing much changes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think for manifestors, that's such an easy, for the mind, that's such an easy go-to, because we're taught at such and I'm generalizing here, but that's a pattern I've seen. It's so usual that you internalize your anger, and because you get angry so often, because people don't treat you according to strategy and authority, so you get this anger, but then you're punished when you get angry, so you internalize it, and then you think that everyone else reacts the way you do when you're quote unquote mistreated. So it's easy to believe or to think that someone's angry with you because that's how I react, but I'm not allowed to show that reaction. So having a reflector, being able to stay neutral and not take on that anger as their own is just, it's very healing, and it's very soothing. And yeah, reflectors are awesome.
Well, like most types, I guess there's some, not good and bad. That's the wrong words, but you know what I mean. There can be some unsavory types in just life in general, can't there?
Yeah, but then it's also, you don't resonate with everyone. Just because someone is a certain type, or they have a certain definition in their chart, doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get along. I mean, they're still a person.
Yeah.
And even if you can look at a chart and go, oh, these are the definition and blah blah, you still have conditioning, and you never know what someone's been through and how their life has shaped them or imprinted them or conditioned them, or whatever expression you want to use.
So very true.
So, and that was a discernment that became very clear for me. I initiated an immersion with Marianne Winegar here in Sweden this summer, and to the ones I've been to before, I've sort of gone into them as, oh, we'll all get along kind of a mindset. But this time it was very clear to me that certain people just weren't correct. And an immersion is somewhere where you, simply put, you hang out and you interact according to the mechanics of the aura. So no one initiates with a manifestor. Generators get asked yes no questions, and projectors get invited to share their perspective, and reflectors,
yeah, please tell me, what do we do?
No, because this immersion, there was only one reflector, and there've been the one I went to before that, I think there were actually 2 or 3, and they were just, asked if there was anything that they wanted to share, and they were also informed that, if you want to move around the room and just see how that feels when different parts of the room. And I think, because I'm so spoiled because of Kitsia and Pontus, to me, reflectors are, and they're easy to get along with, and you carry your own unique perspective, which I really appreciate. But then again, that can be said for any type or any friend who is living their experiment. So it's because we're so ingrained with what a relationship looks like. You call me and then I call you, and then it's supposed to be a back and forth, or an equal thing, or whatever parameters you've set up in your mind. And for me as a manifestor, I really don't appreciate someone approaching me. I really don't.
Unless you reach out like you do to me and say, it's okay for you to ask me stuff. And I always giggle and I'm like, oh, thank you.
because if I don't tell you, you don't know, right?
Yeah.
But it's I think it's just the ease of being left alone, which gives me space to move towards. And that's rare for a manifestor to have that space.
Yeah.
And because most people don't, because it's rude, right? If you walk into a room and there are people in the room, you say hello to everyone, right? No.
You don't say hello to everybody?
If I'm like the immersion, I don't want you to say hello to me. it's not nice. And now it's gotten to a point where it used to piss me off.
Yeah.
It used to piss me off. And now I feel a little bit more like, oh, man. Because what happens is I might see someone and they walk into a room and I'm like, oh, I want to go talk to that person. If they approach me, then the energy's gone.
Yeah.
It's like I have all this energy and someone just pulls out the plug and it just all drains away. And I have this, I'm still waiting. I have this generator because my youngest daughter has an open throat. And so she navigates the world in a different way than everyone else in the family because we all have defined throats, different configurations, but defined throats. And I know this generator who has an open throat, and I asked if he was available to answer some questions, and he was. So I sent him a text. I'm like, oh, you have energy and I have some questions, and he answered yes. And then he asked me a question, and it was the smallest, tiniest, just a polite question. I think it was something like, how are you doing? Or and it just drained the energy. And my mind, I feel so guilty. And I want to get back to him, but now it's like I have to wait for the energy to get back there.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's just it was one question, and I like the guy. I initiated the whole thing, but he came back with the questions like, oh, damn it.
I love how you're so aware you are of that. Could you imagine, which you would know, obviously, but I think to myself, could you imagine if you were me and I was a manifester, but I never really understood why that person suddenly just pissed me off. Like it'd be a constant feeling of just self-doubt, like, what is going on with me? And not understanding what you just explained then about the energy just drained. And I just
Yeah.
think, wow, that's, that's, I guess, the what we do here is reflectors helping reflectors. And is that something you're still doing? Are you still doing that? A lot of the manifestor work that you were doing?
I am. I've pulled back because I oh, this is another thing. I was like, after the last thing we did, I was like, oh no, I'm not a trained analyst yet. Like I'm in the middle of my education. I felt so bad. I was like, I don't want people believing that I'm an analyst when I'm not. So I'm in the middle, or I'm towards the tail end of my analyst training, which takes up a lot of my time. And our youngest daughter, the generator with the open throat, was just started preschool. So that's been a lot of work because she's a pandemic baby. She's not been around people. She's not been anywhere but home. So for her, it was a lot more than just learning to be. It was everything was new.
Yeah.
Everything was new. Being around a group of kids, being around different adults, being in a different environment. So everything was new. So we're still adjusting. So that's taking up a lot of my time. To get back to your question, yes, I still work with manifestors, not to the extent that I used to, but I can see the confusion for a lot of manifestors, and especially when you go online.
Mm.
There is so much, and I'm not going to mince my word, there's so much fucked up shit being spouted, as I'm sure it is for reflectors as well.
Have you ever seen my fifth line go nuts?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Comes in and out, doesn't it? It's like just wait for it. It's like, I've got something to say.
I love it.
And you think you should really
I love
hold back.
it.
And I'm like, oh, I don't give a fuck anymore. Like I just get shit some days, and it's like it's gonna come out, and it's
Yeah.
and other people will sort of say, you should really wait. And I'm like, I am the cross of distraction. I have 6 fucking gates in my throat. Do you think I'm going to wait? No. do have a little bit of fun with that sometimes. It invigorates my energy of just going, I'm just going to stir a little bit of shit, and because I really want to have a say, and then I'll just, the meme where they pretty much just go in, light a match and throw it, and it just goes off, and then they just walk away. That's sometimes, and I know that sounds silly, but that's sometimes how it feels. And sometimes you'll have a little snigger as you walk away going, and you think, how old are you again? And you think, no, I just need to say something that nobody else is going to say because they're too busy pussyfooting around.
Yeah, but isn't that there, because that's the thing that I find with human design for all the types. It's like that it should be some kumbaya shit and we're all getting along, and it's like, no, I will definitely, and I for sure have, especially during the immersion in Stockholm, because I was the one who initiated, and Marianne mentioned that in her letter going out to everyone. So I know that there were people curious about who I was and like wanted to get to know me, and I said, I don't. I asked Marianne. That was it. I'm not part of it. I'm sure I pissed some people off. I'm sure there were people leaving that immersion thinking I was an asshole, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. You don't have to get along with everyone. There's for me as a manifestor though, I cannot like someone that doesn't give me the right to say mean shit to them. Does it make sense? Let me see if I can rephrase that. I can be civil, but I don't have to play nice.
Yeah.
And if I don't want to talk to someone, I just don't talk to them.
Mm.
And if they perceive that as me being pissed off, because that's usually what happens for a manifestor, if we don't step into a room and go, hello everyone, oh, I'm here and I love everyone, oh, I'm all flowers and rainbows and fucking unicorns and glitter, people perceive us as pissed off, which I can understand in a sense, but no.
Yeah.
And as far as reflectors, I don't know, I've heard a little bit of how how you're all supposed to be soft and wishy-washy and yeah, flowy. Yeah, that's the one.
I am pretty fluid and flowy, but sometimes there's a few boulders that go down that stream, so you better look out. It's
and for me it's, I mean, I've seen shit you post and I'm like, oh yeah, you go get it.
Whoopsie days. It's having a mood. You never know who I was channeling that day. It'd be interesting if you go back and I actually tracked it through. I was feeling really angry today, for example. I was just out of the blue. I just felt this frustration and I dropped into my body and I'm like, where is that coming from? Last day of school, the summer holidays. And I thought, okay, maybe it's just been a big day. And I'm like, no, this doesn't really feel like me. I wonder what's going on. So sure enough, I quickly sat down and because I looked what's happening. What's happening in the transits? Yeah, sure enough, definitely got that manifestor energy today. So I'm just like, yep, you got in my path. And it's like I don't profess to feel it the same way as any other type, but it's like you can't make this shit up. It just happens. It's just like literally a shoe got in my way and it's just like, that damn fucking shoe, why is it in my way? And it's like, okay, it was in my flow, man. It was in my flow. And I was like, that really, really annoyed me. Like, it's strange.
Now imagine living that every damn day. Yeah. No, it's yeah, and it's become clear to me that there's a lot of people are really, or manifestors I should say, are really keen on finding a way to navigate the world so there's less resistance. But for most of them it's just not correct, because then what it turns into is, as a manifestor, it's easy to feel, as I'm sure for a reflector in say in a similar but a different way, you feel left out, you feel like an outcast, you feel very different, you don't connect to people the way you see everyone else doing. And there's always, people could be having a nice chat in the coffee room or whatever, and you walk in and then everything just changes ever so slightly. It just changes. And once you leave, you can hear them start talking again. It's like, what? There must be something wrong with me. What am I doing wrong? So I get for manifestors who have lived that their whole life, and they find out they're manifesting, and they're like, yes, I'm gonna rule this shit, mother. Everyone, I'm the one to give orders. I'm the one to tell people what to do. I'm at the top of the pyramid. And that's also, remember, I'm a sixth line.
Yeah.
Of course. But I see that narrative over and over that, manifestors have some sort of responsibility for the world. And it's like, if that's correct for you, then have at it. If that's where your strategy and authority leads you, go for it. That's definitely not where my strategy and authority led me.
Yeah.
And I can understand that from a not self-mind perspective, where it's like you've always felt on the outs, and then all of a sudden you're like the shit.
Yeah.
But no. But it's difficult for the mind to accept or surrender or admit that, even if you have this quote unquote power,
Yeah.
that doesn't give you the right to bulldoze people into what you want or what you think you want.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing.
Yes. And I think it's very similar for the reflector type, of us knowing things, us being able to pull stuff out of people and just, saying inappropriate things that people aren't ready to hear. So you got manifestors, instead of going along and bulldozing stuff, and you got reflectors going, oh, I thought everyone knew that. And they're just, it's like, got to mind your words, mind what you say to people. That's a hard lesson to learn in both respects, isn't it? It's just it's like, at the same time, why do we have to suppress who we are? So there's a part of us that just gets to that point of going, well, I'm not going to be conditioned anymore. I'm going to be respectful, as you were saying there before. I'm going to be respectful, but if I don't want to talk to you, I'm not going to talk to you. And how you perceive that is completely on you, nothing to do with me. Yeah. That's freedom.
Yeah.
That's freedom. When you can get to that point, it's not giving a shit. It's just owning who you are. Yeah. That's where I'm going. That's the feeling I've had this year of just going, oh, well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, I had that, I had that really get to a point of, my dad died almost a year ago. And it was really interesting watching how I navigated his death and everything that came after. Because I thought I know I've been living my experiment, since 2012. I've been using my strategy and my authority. But watching it unfold in such a in a situation that was supposed to be so quote unquote difficult to navigate and so emotional, and I was sad and I cried and I had all these feelings, but I wasn't emotional about it because I'm not emotional. So I'm sure that some people perceive that as me being cold, which I am in a sense because I'm splenic, so it's only now that matters. So I can be super sad, and then, you know, it's like flipping a switch and I'm good. It's over. It's done with. It's another now. And I I broke one of the biggest rules at the funeral, because I don't know what it's like in Australia, but here in Sweden, the family is supposed to sit at the front and then descending, you know. I didn't go sit in the front. I sat in the back because that's where I was comfortable. And thankfully, my family, not my mom, but the rest of my family, I talked to them and they sort of knew the situation. And I warned them, I informed them, I'm probably going to behave in a way that's not conforming to protocol when it comes to funerals. So they were all prepared. I'd also told my mom, I don't know how much information she could actually take in since she just lost her life partner, but I told her I had done my part. I had informed her, and she wasn't sitting up there alone. But the looks I got from the friends and everyone who didn't know, oh, I would have been just as dead as him. Because I was, you know, but then they couldn't say anything to me because I was, you know, as part of the closest family. And when my dad just died, so they couldn't come and have a go at me. And it was just interesting to watch that, and how it was so liberating to me to really be put in a situation where I couldn't move. I couldn't move from where I was sitting. It was so clear that it was not correct for me to follow the norm or do what was expected of me. It just wasn't correct.
Yeah.
And I was fine with it not being correct for me. My mind didn't find it, there was no way in for my mind, you know, the way it can be sometimes when you're making decisions that maybe aren't fully aligned, or
Aligned,
you know, but there was no way in for my mind. And I also made the decision not to go see him when he was in hospital, and I knew that when I got the call. I was like, nope, I'm not going to go see him. So I saw him 6 months, I think, roughly, before he died. And I just knew I'm not going to go see him. It's not correct for me. And not a thought has ever crossed my mind where it's been like, oh, but don't you regret, you know, maybe you should have gone to visit him. Nothing.
Yeah.
And of course, there's more to the story, but it's not my story to tell. I'm just telling it from my perspective.
Yeah.
And my mom is she doesn't understand the way I live my life. But she accepts that, you know, this is how I operate now. And it's either that or not at all.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the point that it's gotten to for me. You either accept that I operate the way I do, or we don't have a relationship.
Yeah. Wow.
Which is crazy, right? Because it's my mom.
No.
But it's like, well,
I don't think it's crazy at all. I think
but
the filters just come off. It's like, you know, with older people, that it's like suddenly they have no filter. You know, when they get old and they just say shit as they say it. Something happens to us when we get older where it's the filter gets removed. And I think last year my filter started to get to, and it was like, oh, I think it also could be with women with menopause. When they go through with menopause, there's this huge shift, and it's just suddenly you really do stop giving a shit. And it's like, and you were just saying there before, like, you know, having that moment of pure liberation. It's just like, this is liberating. Why don't they teach this in schools? Like, why?
Yeah. And speaking of schools, like I said, our youngest daughter, she started preschool, and she's not, well, I can't say I'm surprised because I've known her all my life, but she is really, I don't like the word feisty, but she doesn't take any shit, like none. We
She's a
go to
Manigen,
once.
isn't she?
No, she's a pure generator. That's the thing.
Yeah.
She's a pure generator with an open throat, open ego.
Yeah.
So anyway, we once a week we go to gymnastics, and it's nothing organized. It's just like another family is renting this gymnastics hall, and we just pull everything out, ball and rings and everything, and the kids just go nuts for an hour. So the parents are there, and she was climbing up on this thing and wanted to jump off, and this little boy about her age climbed up at the same time, and she just got in his face, was like, "Oh, I'm going," and he was like, "Oh, okay." And so she went, and I was like, "Oh," and then I went and picked her up from preschool yesterday, and she has this friend, and she loves this friend. They've become best friends. It's a boy, and they're about, I think he's a little bit bigger, and she was sliding down a little slope that they have, and I don't know exactly what happened, but he was on top of it, not mean, but he was sort of laying on top of her, and she just screamed, "No, you don't get to," and bite me or something. And so he just sat back and he went, "Oh, sorry," and then he gave her a peck on the cheek, and then he ran off. I was like, wow, I did not see that coming. And I told my husband, I will not tell her off for that.
No.
I will not scold her for that. Because if she starts getting scolded for having her boundaries now when she's 4, I know where that's going to lead, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Totally.
of course we can talk to her and say, don't use your sounds, or, you don't have to raise the volume maybe that much. You can still say no. But I really like that quality with her. And she's really rough, and she likes to punch and wrestle, and
she's feisty, as you say.
Yeah.
It'll serve her
Definitely.
well. It's always when you're raising children, you kind of think, I want you to have these attributes when you're an adult, but can you tone it down while I'm raising you and kind of bring them back out when you're an adult? Can you?
Yes.
It's like, I know this is going to serve you really well later on, but fuck, it's hard to manage right now being your parent.
Our oldest daughter, she's a manifesting generator.
That's right. Yeah.
She's the manifesting generator, and she has a defined ego with an open head ajna. The things that she knows and the things that she doesn't need to be told. And it's like you said, we talk about this, me and my husband, all the time. We know that these are all qualities that's going to be wonderful for you to have when you go out into the world and you have to navigate it on your own.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to keep you alive so you can get there.
My son is exactly the same. Manifesting generator, completely defined will center, open head, 4-6. Some days he is beautiful, but some days I just go, wow, you are going to rule the country because you try and rule me now. And if you don't know something, just ask Jax, because Jax will tell you. I love it. I love human design in this regard too, when you're raising families, and because you see right through it. Like my daughter's splenic, and even just you saying there before, I've learned so much from just listening to other splenic projectors or even splenic manifestors talk about that in the now, and how you worded that before. I'm just like, oh, right, that's exactly what she's like. She's not cold. She's just living in these moments because it's an instant. And I'm like, thank you. That's just saved me some frustration sometimes of going, I know you feel things, I know you do, but you never show it. It's just because she's in the actual now, and in 2 seconds time it'll be a different now.
And that, again, going back to my dad dying, was a good thing I know I'm splenic, because like I said, flipping a switch. like going from bawling my eyes out and like not being able to breathe to like it was just it's so fast sometimes, and it's just, yeah, I can fully understand how that can be perceived as cold from the outside if you don't know what you're dealing with.
Yeah. Fun times.
But it's good. I, like you said, I really appreciate this knowledge when it comes to the kids and when it comes to raising kids. Because if I didn't know what I know about myself as a manifestor mom, I think I would have come to the conclusion that I'm a sociopath or a psychopath even. Because I'm so far removed from everything that we're conditioned with, that moms are supposed to be. I was watching a show yesterday. I can't remember what it was, and it was something along the lines, oh, but moms always know where to find things, and moms are all, and I was like, not in my house. I can't look for things for shit. They go to
complete
dad.
open centers, head center, and everything here. Everything's missing. I've got my phone in my hand and I'm still looking for it.
and it's all these little things that we get conditioned with, that I'm so not. And that, oh, but you can't sleep at night because you're a mom. I sleep like a fucking log. It's my poor husband who wakes up during the night. But it's like my body, went through pregnancy, went through breastfeeding. It's like, okay, I'm out. I'm done. They're out in the world. I'm done. And it's not like I don't try to wake up. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't. And he wakes at the drop of a hat, poor thing.
Yeah.
So it's all these things that, and also, being a manifestor, I know I have to tell my kids. I have to say to them, I love you. I see you. I appreciate you. All of these things I have to tell them, because there's no way for them to energetically, there's no energy exchange. They're sacral beings, and there's no energy exchange between me and them. And so I have to tell them. And when when their reaction is, yeah, whatever, it's like, okay, I'm done. Maybe I can back off for a bit.
Good mom today.
Because if I hadn't known, then I would have just assumed that they knew. Because I do love them. 2 pieces of my heart is just out walking in the world. I know that, but if I don't tell them, they don't know. And I think that's another thing that can really trip up manifestors, going back to the anger and the manifestor who thought you were angry. It's scary starting to say what's going on inside, because you've been so punished. Usually you've been so punished, so it's scary. And then having someone who can just listen and just not take it into and make it their own, but just be there. It's really, and I'm sure that had an effect on that manifestor, saying, but how were you feeling that day? Because I'm pretty sure no one's ever said that before. Because it's scary being on the outside of a manifestor. I find it uncomfortable.
See, I have not to this day encountered that. Mind you, that the 3-5 manifestor can come across as quite aggressive. I've but it's like I see through that, if that makes sense. It's like, oh, that's just a facade. That's just the mask you're wearing today. And I think that's where reflectors can get themselves into a lot of trouble, because they'll just bypass the mask, and it's a bit confronting for someone. They're like, what did you just do? You just ripped off my mask. That's my protection. That's my what? How can you see me? Oh my God. Yeah.
No, and I meant that when I said uncomfortable, it's like I can still feel, but maybe that's more with emotional manifestors. I'm trying to, because I distinctly remember during an immersion, I was standing, not this last one, but I was standing chatting with someone, and an emotional manifestor just walked up and just stood not next to me, but sort of behind my back shoulder, and I was like, what does she want? What is she doing? Can she come around so I can see her? Because I could feel her behind me. But then again, as a manifestor, it's super cool to be, as I'm sure it is for reflectors and all the other types, it's super cool to be around your own type.
Yeah.
Because of the lack of contention between the auras. Yeah. It's just so nice.
Yeah.
There's no one like poking you, trying to get in, and there's no one trying to envelop you, and they're fluffy. I'm pretty sure, it would be pretty cool to have that's not probably never going to happen, but just to have manifestors and reflectors just hang out and just hear everyone's perspective and perception of what they're feeling and what goes on in the body.
Yeah. For science.
Yeah.
For science. I know what you're saying there about that, because it is, you do feel it the more you kind of like living your experiment and being in your body and really listening to how your body's responding to different energies. And we are generalizing here because people are still people. So as you were saying earlier about that, so not to overly generalize, but I know I get on quite well with projectors, but sometimes I can feel that probing. And it's like, back off. Like,
Yeah.
and it mightn't even be at me. I could just be in a room where they're doing it with other people and they're unintentionally doing it. It's literally like a funnel. And it's like, stop it. You're actually being rude, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's intrusive, I guess is the right
Yeah.
word.
And it's I mean, I have to tell my husband sometimes, he's a projector. And he can just be sitting, because when we work, we sit at an angle. So sometimes when he focus, just, when you think about something or you're trying to solve something and you just focus out of into nothing, he accidentally puts his focus on me and it's like, could you point that somewhere else, please? Because
Can you
so
point that somewhere else? That could be misread for things. Point your gaze.
The focus. The focus. Can you point that focus somewhere else? But then again, he's a projector and I'm a manifestor, so he can't really initiate with me, but we live our life together. So he also uses that if I'm doing something and he needs to tell me something, or he can just come and just focus on me, and I'll turn around and I go, what do you want?
So he bypasses. He's got the hacks. He's got the inside tells.
But for any projectors out there listening, we've been married for 9 years. Is it 9 years? We've been together. Yeah.
Check your ring. Check your ring.
Oh, I know. I thought I'd get through it once, not checking the ring. Damn it. We've been married for years. So it's not a hack for any projector with any type out there, because it's really powerful, that projector focus.
Yeah.
It's really something. And I picked that up, and I have that repelling aura. I'm not even a generator with that open aura, I can, and I see with my kids, I see how different, I mean, we're different types and we're different people and all of that, but I see the effect that he has on them. It's very different from mine. Very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then again, I grew up as a manifestor. I don't have a manifestor kid, so I can't speak to that. I can only, and again, going back to my dad was a manifestor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was, so growing up, it was always so easy when it was just him and me, because we never talked. We just never talked. We just did our own thing. And then, he would come ask me if I'd eaten, or, I would go ask him if he wanted something for dinner, whatever. We just did our own thing. And then my mom would come in. She's a manifesting generator. And it was clear looking back through, or looking at, as I'm sure everyone does when they start their experiment, looking back at previous situations or experiences through the lens of human design, it's like, oh, that's what was going on.
Yeah.
And I can see, me and my dad were like separate islands just moving around in our own autonomy. And then my mom would come in with her enveloping aura and, wanting everyone to be together and wanting everyone to share. And me and my dad was like, what? No, we're fine.
Fine. Yeah,
My poor
thanks.
mom. My poor mom caught between a rock and a hard place.
I think
So yeah.
I don't know if I've shared this with you. Well, maybe I have. I can't remember. But my adoptive parents, so my adoptive father is a reflector and my adoptive mother is a projector. We're just not sure of that type because we can't pin down the actual, but when you stalk and you think back again what you just did, then you think back to your life and you're like, yeah, that's probably why it was pretty cruisy.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of pressure happening in that household. The pressure was all me. I was the pressure.
But it takes, and again, going back to raising kids with this knowledge, it takes away some of the pressure that is so easy to put on yourself. And for me, for example, oh, I should be more loving, or I should be more together, or wanting, it's not who I am. It's not how I operate. Luckily, we live with my mother-in-law, who's a generator, so they get a lot of that sacral energy exchange with her. And it's amazing. It's just awesome to watch because I see how they like playing a board game. When they play with her, it's clear that they're, having fun together. They're doing it together. There's an energy there for them together.
Yeah.
If they play with me or their dad, it's just mayhem. There's none of that. There's none of that easy flow that comes when you hang out with your own type. It's none of that. None of that. And I'm just so glad that they have that.
Yeah.
With their grandmother.
Yeah.
They have that exchange because they need that.
Yes.
They need that exchange.
Yeah.
And as a non-sacral, I look at it from the outside. It's like, oh, there's so much going on.
It's too much.
I think I need to lay down.
Yeah. It's like, oh. Though I say that, but at the same time, I can move and shake it like the best of them. It's like, I think that's another, what do they say? Oh, reflectors need to rest a lot. You need to rest a lot. I'm like, have you seen how much crap I can get done? It's just not consistent, but it doesn't mean I can't move like a speeding train.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting watching the energy.
It's just, like you said earlier, it's just standing true to who you are.
Yeah.
And not, but for me, it's also having no expectations of outcome.
Yeah.
It is a big thing for me as a manifestor, because I that was a big aha moment for me when I realized that, oh, because I just do things. I don't think about things too hard. Never done, even less so now. I just do things. I want a new job. Okay, so I'll apply to a new job, or I'll, and I could never figure out why people had such difficulties with like getting a new job, or moving house, or ending it just never. Why? Oh, that's why. Because I operate this way and other people operate in other ways. Oh, okay. I see. That makes sense.
I get it now.
Yeah. And it's I remember saying this to Kitsia, and I don't know if I've said this to you as well. For me, and that reflectors are slow. And for me, it was never reflectors are slow. It's just reflectors operate on a different time scale. It's just different.
Yeah.
It's not slow, it's just different. And okay, so I know that you have it operate on a different time scale than I do. Then I try to be as respectful as I can with letting you know as far, in advance if I want to do something or if something's happening, so you can have that time to reflect on things. And also, if something pops up and it's like, oh, it's tomorrow and I would really like for us to do this, I have a full understanding of you might not be available.
Yeah.
And it's got nothing to do with whether we're friends or whether you like me or not. It's not personal.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing as well.
Yeah.
It's not personal.
No. No.
Which is, I guess, it's natural for a manifestor and reflector to say that. But maybe for a projector and a sacral being, that's really weird. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know. Well, my husband says that, things aren't personal. So I guess it's not weird for him.
I think if people understand the types, even though they mightn't understand to the depth of their own type, they're more compassionate and they understand that people are human. They're just human, having a human experience. And it's just that I think when people are very still caught up in their own orbit, in their own, it wouldn't matter because they can't see past their own lens. They just, they can't get out of that. We'll call it not self, but just even in that churning out, they can't dissociate from their own ego. Don't know. It's good food for thought though.
Yeah.
I always just think these days, well, I'm going to respectfully live my life and mind my own damn business.
Yeah.
And I'd appreciate it if you fuckers would all do the same.
And not get in the way.
And get out of my way when I'm having a manifest today.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, like I said, I've been experimenting since 2012, but I would say I think in the year leading up to this past year, I think as much has happened in this year, the last year for me, which is just mind-blowing. And I didn't know that was the case until I said it, but I said it, so but that's the way it feels. It feels as if I've really come home, or as if I really starting to solidify what this experiment means.
Yeah, wow.
And it's starting to become very clear, like in my body. Like I said, I couldn't move from the back of the chapel. I just couldn't. I couldn't. And those situations are becoming. It's clear that it's my body navigating this. I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
I'm just watching, going, oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. Huh. I didn't know we were doing this now. And it's the most peaceful life.
Yeah.
I could have never dreamed of life being this peaceful and this calm. And but I mean, remember, I have kids. They're not peaceful.
I know what you mean, though. I know what you mean.
But it's the handling of the everyday situations and everyday mayhem with kids and family and logistics and work and whatever. It's just, I navigate all of that from a solid place of peace, I feel.
Yeah. I love that. So nice. Feels so good. Thank you, beautiful soul. I will let you go.
Okay.
Okay. All right, darling. Bye-bye. You have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.